Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, don't want me first. Because I'm still on admin. You'll have to take me off as an admin.
We're losing viewers at the moment, so I'm just going to transition in 3, 2, 1,
we can share.
and live.
Hey guys, Ed here from Vidco Media Group, and we're going live tonight from the Vidco headquarters. We've got Tom Bailey from Bridge Inbound Marketing tonight. We're just going to have a bit of a Q&A session, talk social media, business and mindset. On the live, if you've got any questions about social media and business and how to get started on social media, leave them down below because Tom will be happy to answer them. But let's start off with, Tom, what is it you actually do?
Thank you, Ed. So, as a bit of a brief history, I've been doing this, and what I do is social media, digital marketing, and inbound marketing for about 7 years now, and sounds like a long time, but it's gone very, very quickly. I started out straight out of school. I was 18 years old, and I guess didn't know a lot, but as most 18-year-olds are, I saw an opportunity and I was overly ambitious and just sort of ran into it and learned a lot along the way. So it's been a very exciting journey, and I'm still just as passionate, if not more passionate, than the day I embarked on the journey. So
that's awesome. So what are some of the businesses you actually work with? Like obviously you work in Bendigo, but what are some of the businesses you're working with?
Over the last 7 years, I think I probably would have worked with in excess of 100 businesses and around Australia, and some of them have been some really exciting and big brands. So I've had an opportunity to work with a diverse range of clients. Currently, well, a lot of my clients are quite long-term relationships, and it's an ongoing relationship. So what I'm actually doing for them is managing their social media presence and making sure that they're optimizing their results and that they're getting as high a return on their investment as possible, versus sort of setting them up and then just letting them go to do it themselves. So currently brands like Champions.ja Group, they've got 9 stores, so it's a large retail brand, some smaller local businesses, and so quite a diverse range of businesses. But yeah.
What was one of, like, when you first started out, obviously social media was new, businesses sort of didn't really take to it because they were doing the old ways of marketing. Was it hard to really get your business going to start off with when you started 7 years ago?
Yeah, well, initially it was difficult for a few reasons. I guess when you're 18 and you're fresh faced and you've sort of got this idea that everyone else just thought, well, social media was a fad, because just prior to that we'd seen MySpace and that sort of fell over and everyone thought Facebook was going to be the next MySpace. And so I think I started out in March 2011, and I remember how I basically got my business started, because again, being 18 years old with this ambitious idea, not that people didn't believe in me, I think they did, but they didn't necessarily believe in the idea, so there was no way I was going to get bankrolled by a family member or friend or anything else like that. So the way I got started was, my first ever client was a Toy World store, and I remember for the first year of marketing services, I think it was about $1,350 or something like that I charged.
Yeah.
And at the time I thought, cha-ching, like, I'm in business, this is fantastic. And I went out and I bought business cards and just used it all to set myself up. And then from there, I just learnt. So I got some experience, and the guy that owned the store back then, I was like, a very, very smart guy. And he was very good, sort of took me under his wing, and I learned an enormous amount from him. He's had quite a long and successful business career. And so through that and getting some runs on the board, then I picked up a whole bunch more clients, and I did a few things right, did a few things wrong, but you just continue.
Yeah, you learn along the way.
You learn along the way. So
that's awesome. Just a question just from the list. I've got a list here, guys, just of some pre-made questions. What are some of the current trends in social media you see that some people may not know of that may help businesses?
Current trends, I think you'll see that a lot of people are really moving more and more towards stories and the story format. So Facebook, which owns Instagram, started the Instagram stories off some time ago, which have increasingly become more and more popular, and now as you can do lives through them. And then Facebook stories have become much more prominent, and there's a lot of people have the belief that increasingly things will move more to that format, and so you'll see less of a news feed and less focus on the newsfeed and more on stories format. The other big things that are emerging are around virtual reality, augmented reality, and so Facebook last week with their annual F8 conference just released a whole bunch of updates around that and what the possibilities are going to be. And you see, same as either a Snapchat story or an Instagram story, where you can put a funny
you got
face
the
on or a
faces and that
mask.
stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So it just makes things a little bit more lighthearted, and ultimately these platforms are designed for human interaction, and businesses can join in on that. I think if they try to capitalise on it too much and be too business oriented, they're not really going to succeed. But if you can continue that human, person to person interaction, then you're really going to succeed.
Yeah.
Because it's person to person. So.
100%. For businesses, especially because we've got a few business owners will be on this live, what would be the best platform to really start off with? If they're just getting onto social media now, it's probably a bit late, sort of thing.
Yep.
Or you could have got it a couple of years ago. You get it now, it's still fine. Doesn't really matter. What would be like the best platform?
Well, it's like that. I think it's a Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. So if you haven't started, then you're not too late. And I think even all of us are sitting around thinking, geez, I wish we had taken more advantage of whatever the platform was, Instagram 8 months ago,
a couple of years ago as well,
or YouTube when they first started out, and you could have just made leaps and bounds had we have known. And it's the same thing when you hear about people talking about, I wish I had bought such and such a property 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But retrospect's a fantastic thing. But sure enough, us standing around saying that today, we'll again be saying that in 24 months' time and further. So go all in, and there's no better time to start than today. So my advice would be, depending on what your business is, but really to cover bases, I think for almost any business, Instagram and Facebook are both two very big platforms, and there's a very broad demographic on each. So you're really going to be able to probably find and appeal to your target audience. And I remember even when I first started out, particularly with Instagram, where people think it's all for young people. Both of my grandparents are in their 70s, and they've got
well, then it's for that demographic, and then they get older as well. So like when I first started on Facebook, it was 2007. Now like my parents are on Facebook as well. So like there's the whole age group is getting online, and
particularly baby boomers, because they want to stay in touch with their kids, their grandkids. They want to see what everything is going on, and more than that, they've got time on their hands. There's a lot that are very active. But this is the biggest thing. A lot of marketers think, our target audience is in that baby boomer market, so we're not going to bother with social media. Well, really, that's a big mistake. And the biggest reason for that, I think, is if you look at the difference between a 20-year-old who's going to their Instagram feed who's like that
just looking for
versus a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old.
They're going a bit slower, so you have you have more chance to really
very thoughtful.
To get them on board what you're doing, what you're selling. Yeah.
And studies show that their retention's far greater. In a lot of cases, they've got a high level of expendable income, and you can market to them very effectively because it's personalised. So I think they like that, and the devices again are very intuitive. So they're easy to adopt because you just touch screen. They're not like, I think we had that gap where for a few years you had to use keypads and all the rest of it, and that overcomplicated things. But now I think
when the iPhone came out, it's sort of changed.
It's getting easier, and the adoption rates are getting higher and higher. So,
just got another question. What's a common thing you would see in businesses these days that they're struggling on the social media? They got social media, but they're not doing as well. What's the most common thing you see in businesses?
Two things: consistency. So a lot of people and human beings, we all have a tendency to do this. It doesn't matter whether we are starting a new fitness regime. If we don't see results tomorrow, then that's it. We're going to throw in the towel.
I've seen so many Facebook pages over the last couple of years. Just they'll do a spurt of post for maybe a week, and then they'll give up.
Yep.
They get 1 or 2 likes and Facebook doesn't work. This thing doesn't work.
And the thing is, often it's a limiting belief or some sort of an opinion that they'll hold around their social media or social media in general. And so they'll finally be convinced, but that there's an underlying just wanting to say, I knew it was never going to work. I told you it wasn't going to work for me. It wasn't going to work for our business. And you think, well, you only really tried for a week. You've really got to stick to it. And sometimes it can take 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And I always say, when it comes to consistency, think about this. And this is something with working with you guys that I really noticed was the consistency of having that consistent flow of content. It made me improve my confidence on camera drastically and my ability to perform. But also the perception of other people, and everyone can probably relate to someone who they've seen online, whether it's a YouTube channel or something, and to start off with they thought, that person I don't like.
Yeah.
You just rubbed it a long way, then you see a second video, I kind of like that. And slowly but surely, after a few, you're a raving fan. And everyone can probably think of someone just like that. So consistency is a really, really big thing. And the second thing is design and the quality of the content. And this probably overlaps into two things. One would be the quality as far as the actual presentation, making it aesthetically pleasing and something that's easy to interpret versus just grabbing some image off Google or bad quality thing, which is, again, you guys are producing high quality video content, which is fantastic, and people can tell. That really
definitely stands out. So obviously you can see when someone's just done an iPhone compared to like a proper shoot, proper camera sort of setup. Yeah.
And even all the things that go into something like that or a video shoot that people don't think about, but I think that's when you know something's being done well, is all the thought that goes into it that makes it look effortless. And even small things like the sound and the quality of the transitions.
Yeah. It's even an example. This live is shot on one of our Sony A7S. Don't know the name. Anyway, it's a Sony, but we're live streaming from that. Instead of using an iPhone, so now we're got the sound recorder here. So that's something that's
next level.
Next level sort of stuff that businesses are starting to do on social media these days. But there is a lot of businesses still behind. So
it's more and more progressive. But I think that quality, it just shows. It shows, I think, the intention of wanting to put the time and the effort in to make sure that people's experience is good. And I think the second thing is you've got to disconnect your own personal wants and needs from your content. So if you can provide value to someone else through, it's kind of like edutainment. So you're educating them and you're entertaining them at the same time, which means if you show someone something, as you're saying, with crappy footage or some image that you've just pulled off Google that's no thoughts really going into it, that communicates across to your audience that you don't really, it just shows a lack of effort, shows a lack of care. And so I think in a big way, and now more than ever, the quality of the content is so important. And you see it all the time where businesses want to start a podcast or something like that, and you think, well, no one's going to listen to your shitty accounting podcast if all you're wanting to get out of it is leads and sales, versus you could have a fantastic accounting podcast if you're putting effort onto communicating maybe how you could deliver value to those business owners, so saving time through bookkeeping, saving time through whatever it might be, but things that are going to add value or make their lives better, ultimately going to win.
I think Gary Vee says it best in jab, right hook. That's what we're talking about, that give, then ask sort of mentality. A lot of businesses, I think, in marketing, like the old way of marketing, it was like, 30% off this, 30% off that, get this flash sale. And a lot of people, I think, with businesses have brought that to social media, and like it's just not working.
Yeah. It's not a distribution platform, and that's 100%. What we're sort of saying. It is two-way, and people switch off because and in a lot of ways that's why marketers will probably or have ruined certain elements of social media, and that's why the algorithms continue to change, because what Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, they're all trying to provide an environment which facilitates that interaction. And the second people start to hack the system or start to do things where they're using it as a distribution platform, it's not a newspaper. And they don't want it to be a newspaper. So that's why you'll see the algorithm adapt. And so there's more of a preference on people who have interactions with one another. So the more you can be social, because after all they are social platforms, then the more you're going to come out on top. So it's really just being very selfless, and it's almost selfish to be selfless, because you're really going to get the most when you take the least.
Yeah.
Provide value, and as you said, jab, right hook, and sometimes it's not even, it's the ability to then have an ask. It's not even, I'm going to do it 3 times because then I get an ask. It's not just a formula as that. The way I see it, it's just, it gives you, maybe if you so choose, then you can.
Yeah, and it builds trust with your audience online, for example. We're doing a live today, this is just giving value, but this builds trust with potential people in the future that want to do business with either us or you, because you're giving back value to them. Like, this is a free live, doesn't cost any sort of thing. So that's something that I think businesses in general should start doing a lot more, is just give back and you'll receive more sort of thing.
And for us, it costs us a little bit of our time, but it's worth it, because I think what else are we here for if it's not to be able to make other people's lives easier? And I've got a really big belief that majority of people in society today, we're all struggling and facing similar problems or the same problems, and yet there's such a fakeness. And this is one of the things about social media that I don't necessarily like. It is that keeping up with the Joneses is kind of just escalated. and keeping up appearances has never been more of a thing. And so people don't want to ask for help, they don't want to ask questions. And so I just think of it like this: it's that we're all facing the same problems, and none of us are sharing notes. So if you and I can spend half an hour of our day to make someone else's life easier and better, then that's, I think, as human beings, what we're here to do, and our lives are about creating value for other people.
100%, 100%. I think we've got a question. Brandon, who's the question from?
Darcy.
Darcy, what's Darcy's question?
Darcy asks Tom, can you talk about how you feel video is being embraced or not embraced on different social media platforms?
Repeat the question.
But
If you know that, it's a long question, so that's Darcy.
I got it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So is there a difference between which social media platforms are basically embracing video, or which platforms video will work best on? That's basically...
I think that's what the nature of the question is. Can you talk about how...
I'll try and bring it up, yeah.
Well, each of the platforms will perform... video is going to perform very well on most of the platforms because it's content that people digest very easily. It's something that if you're on the go, you can, in a lot of cases, I know with YouTube Premium, you can hit the lock button on your iPhone and you can continue listening to it. So basically, your video becomes a podcast, and that's why we're going to see more of an emergence of audio and audio marketing.
Yeah, well, podcasts are coming back now. Like they were, I remember when I heard about it, like 2008, they were around.
Yep.
I remember Hamish and Andy used to listen to all these podcasts, but then just died off. Like the last 2 years, it's just come back. And everyone, like you're seeing YouTubers now taking advantage of this stuff. Like Casey Neistat, for example, is starting a podcast. And Gary Vee's been doing podcasting the last year, so everyone's jumping on that podcast as well as, obviously doing their video as well.
And again, it's because they're thinking about what their audience wants and maybe thinking ahead of what their audience needs. And so what they're doing is very, very smart because they're basically creating these pillars of content. So for us, we could turn this into a podcast because no one needs to see the visual to probably gain a lot of benefit of what we're talking about. So therefore, you record the video, you separate the video and the audio, and produce that and put it out as your podcast.
Make multiple pieces of content out of the one thing,
And so you're repurposing, and it's a very smart way of doing it. And I think some of the people that have led the way, and particularly Gary Vee, is probably one of the people at the forefront of that. And now you see people like Tom Bilyeu with Impact Theory and London Real. And a lot of YouTube channels are actually becoming very popular podcasts. Tim Ferriss is probably one of the only ones that started the opposite way, whereas I've seen now he's starting to video tape and record some for YouTube, particularly some of the last few. But prior to that, he was one of the most successful podcasts.
Was he number one?
He's number one in the business
business
category on iTunes. So
he's killing it.
I guess to answer that question simply would be yes. Pretty much all of the platforms, I would say, broadly speaking, yes, most of the platforms will optimize for video because of the fact that it's easy to digest for people, and people are becoming time poor and also lazy. We don't want to read, and whether we have to read for work or read for whatever else, sometimes that's not necessarily going to be the platform for it. So I think video is
and I think with video as well, with all the platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, people are posting content obviously different to each platform. So with Instagram, you've got Instagram stories. People are now starting to put high quality videos into their stories because that's where their attention is for those viewers. Like I know if I do an Instagram story, I can get up to 200 to 300 people if I tag Bendigo, for example. And if I post a video that I've made, I put them through my story, I'm getting 400 people see my story sort of thing. When I just post on a normal Instagram, it's not as many views, but sort of like there's different ways to post the content too on each platform. So and I think with LinkedIn is a bit different too.
Well, LinkedIn, I've got a very good example of this. I had a client a couple of weeks ago, I think, running for a board election. I said, well, why don't you do a quick video and just explain it to a camera versus sort of writing out about the election platform. And so we did, and it works so much better because of the fact that the reason video works, in my opinion, above all else, it's not about the time, it's not about anything else, it's about the fact that you can convey your energy and people know you're not hiding behind anything, there's no misreading your tone of voice, your body language, everything's there. And they say that 90% of communication is non-verbal, so think about it like that, then that's why I think video is the most superior platform of communication other than face-to-face, that you can do. So to be able to package something up and it's scalable because you can reuse the same video, so you can help so many people just by doing this. And that's what I'm blown away by, the fact that, you know, how many Instagram fans you might have, or Facebook fans you might have, and as you're saying, particularly when you're tagging or
tagging Bendigo,
using the
definitely
explore features within Instagram. I've had videos where you can get up to 200, 300, 400 people sometimes just by tagging Bendigo. Any person or business could have the ability
to reach so much more. Yeah.
Just by producing something that the algorithm picks up and wants to show preference to. So it's a more scalable platform. For us to be able to get 200 or 300 people into a room is very difficult. But for us to have a video that we can put out, probably quite common that we're going to get 200, 300, 400 people, up to a couple of thousand people view it. And so that was the case with this video. We posted it to LinkedIn, which is a fantastic platform for video. Since they've just done some updates, we can see what kind of what businesses the people who are watching are from. And within a week, this video had over 2,700 views. So he said 2,700 people viewed that video. Just
on LinkedIn, and then like LinkedIn's obviously all business people are on there too, so they're quality views for business sort of stuff as well.
Yeah,
so that's
huge. People are commenting, people are giving their feedback. We tweeted it as well, which opened a whole bunch of Twitter conversations. But it was so much more powerful than you think versus just writing the link. And this is where being smart with some of the things, a lot of the nuanced little actions in social media make all the difference. So as an example, people might have seen the Google shortened links or the Bitly shortened links until we use that. So if we put that video out, which as we did, we got the 2,700 or something in the first week. Of that, I can then see how many people click through to the website to view the rest of the information that was there. And so from that, there was about 200 people. So you can see there was a roughly 10% click through, which is fantastic.
That's huge. Just to the viewers, if you've got any questions about social media, business and mindset, that's what the topics are on today. Tom Bailey is from Bridge Inbound Marketing. So this is just leave a question down below. If you've got any questions, we'd love to answer them. Darcy's got a question. My brother's got a question. Darcy, what's your question?
Is there any plans for LinkedIn to offer a live feed?
Not that I'm aware of, but
I believe it. Like live video is where it's going.
It is.
It is, live show like this. This is obviously one of our first shows, but this is where we like to take our content for our business as well. But I don't know what's going to happen on LinkedIn, but I definitely would see it going that way.
My intuition would say exactly that. Most of the platforms are integrating live, so Instagram Stories now with live. Just last week at the F8 conference, they've announced that you'll be able to do video calls or video chats similar to Skyping or something through Instagram as a platform, and I think we'll see more and more of that start to happen. The competition between Facebook and LinkedIn is going to become very fierce. I think Facebook, with establishing the Facebook Workplace, probably started to tread on their turf a little bit. So just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen LinkedIn launch video ads. And so that's a step forward as far as video on the platform. And I think since they've been redeveloping the platform over the last 18 months, we've seen more and more that video has become popular. And it was only 2, 3, 4 months ago that you could not actually post video on LinkedIn. So
it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, in a short amount of time, they've come leaps and bounds, and because I think they realised that they had to catch up.
Yeah.
So to answer that question, I definitely think I would peg a time frame of within the next 12 months we'll see LinkedIn incorporating live.
That's huge for LinkedIn if they do that. I've got another question here, just from my own thing. What's one thing, for example, from a mindset stance from you, Jack, what does it take to actually run a digital marketing agency? Obviously you work by yourself, you work from home, a bit out of the office sort of thing. What is it, the mindset, what's that? What drives you to do that?
A lot. And again, this is stuff that's trial and error, because it is all consuming non-stop 24 hours a day, and if you let it will consume you. So it is something you have to build a lot of discipline into. And I was just chatting with someone today about this who he said if he felt like he was basically hooked on social media and he couldn't stop. And I said, well, that's where you need to be aware of it and just build discipline and some practices of discipline into your routine and your habits. So set yourself time limits as to when you check social media and for how often. Turn your notifications off, little things like that. And that's stuff that scares people at first because of the FOMO or fear of missing out. But you can get used
You
to
need
it.
to do it, yeah. Like I know when I go to bed, I'll put the do not disturb me because I get emails, messages all through the night just flashing, vibrating.
It affects your sleep, it affects your central nervous system every time your phone vibrates in your pocket. And not only that, the way that the platforms are built, say Instagram as an example, the double tapping is built in as a feature, UX feature or user experience feature, but it's basically because they're linking psychology and physiology, and it's no different to using a poker machine, pokies machine or something like that, as far as they're physically linking you to an addictive behaviour, and addictive. They want that repetition. So a lot of the platforms have built addictions into them. However, you're starting to see people are becoming more and more mindful of this, and they want to disconnect a little bit. So as an example, Vero, the new social media platform, has been the first to sort of pave the way in saying that they're not going to give users a random notification because they think they might like something, basically as a hook or some sort of a lure to get them onto the platform and using again. And I think what we'll see is more and more platforms start to take that stuff more seriously, and particularly even with Facebook now, the privacy scandal, it was a very, very fast turnaround for them to put some proactive steps in action to change the platform. And this is a big update for social media, is that Facebook now will allow users to clear their history just like you would your web browser history at any time, and basically it'll erase it of cookies, it'll erase it of any third-party interactions of the other apps, anything. So it's something that's a big step, but I think an important step, and it means that they're basically giving the users discretion on how they'll use that. So back to the initial question as to, for me, emotionally it can be a big thing because the businesses I work with I'm very emotionally invested in, and my mind, I struggle to switch off basically. So if I've got a customer or a client facing a problem or a dilemma, I'll sort of find myself that it keeps me up at night too.
Yeah.
And I really care about the businesses that I work with, and I don't work with them if there isn't that level of connection. And so things for me, when I was 18 years old, if you had told me about meditation and mindfulness, I would have said it was a bunch of hippie bullshit and there's no way. But now it's a very integral part of my routine, and my daily routine is breathing and meditation, just as a way of being able to channel my awareness and my focus so that I'm proactive and not reactive to these technologies. So there's some big things like my girlfriend and I don't have our phones in the room. So when we go to sleep, we have our phones in a separate bedroom. It's good because you're probably not going to get the brain cancer, or there's theories about whether or not people might have that sort of thing. But also good because it means you're not checking it before you go to sleep, and you're not checking it first thing when you wake up. So that makes it an enormous difference. Just small little things like that you have to build into your day that will make all the difference. So it's a very big question, I guess, but multiple ways like that was just I've had to learn the hard way. That you just have to build these small little routines or small bits of discipline and habits into your day, and that's how you can sort of survive and thrive in this field.
Two questions. I think Darcy's is more of a question on what you might have just said through that. Haven't they always had the feature to erase your search history? Question mark.
Search history as far as who you've looked up.
You could erase the search history of who you looked up. I think what you're talking about is
everything.
Just everything that's
their entire file that they've got on you, and on every user would be probably 500,000 pages long. Like it's 500 million pages long. It would be an enormous, and because of the fact that Facebook basically gathers so much information from third-party sources and aggregated data. So from your financial institution, if you use your bank card for something, your name and so forth isn't on it, but in some indirect way,
it's coded something.
It's linked, and
but that'd be huge.
The cookies. So yeah.
If someone clears it, like, then they won't be getting the targeted ads as much, wouldn't they?
Exactly. So, and you can also have the choice to never for them. You just basically switch it off, and they can't track you. So they're giving users that ability. But the thing is, all the people that complain about getting ads are probably the same people who've said for the last 20, 30 years they didn't like getting the letterbox drops and the TV commercials and all the irrelevant advertising. And now finally there's a solution where people will bring you things at a time that's relevant to you because you've been searching for it, or there's a lot of theories about our microphones being on through Messenger, and I can think of a lot of uncanny things where that you haven't searched for something and then an ad shows up for it.
I've seen that a few times where just talked about something with someone, suddenly it comes up on Facebook as a sponsored ad, and I'm like, okay, Zuckerberg, what have you been doing?
Yeah, just looking over your shoulder. Exactly. So, I think just on that is you'll have the ability to completely remove your entire history and their history, and also to be able to view what data they have on you. But a lot of people probably won't want to do that or choose to do that because they'll respect the fact that they've been given the option, but they want to continue to use a platform that's going to provide them things that will add value to their lives at relevant times.
100%.
Got another question from Megan Taylor. Is it true that Facebook is going back to family-orientated posts rather than ads when you're scrolling through your newsfeed?
Ads, it's supply and demand, and as ads become more and more in demand, and as they change the algorithm to put more of a preference on, ultimately, if they only showed ads, people would stop using Facebook. So that's bad for business, and something they want to avoid at all costs. So what they will do is show less ads and try to show more relevant ads, but as a result of that, to target things, all sorts of considerations start to come into the mix as far as how many people are interacting with it, how popular it is, how much of an ad it seems like. Does it, or is it more of a if it's influencer marketing, it could be something user-generated content where it's a review on something where it almost doesn't seem like an ad. So ads will, yes, they'll show up less and less, but as a result of that, they'll become more and more expensive. And so you'll see the same as what we saw with Google AdWords, which are very intent driven, but where you used to be able to, and Gary Vaynerchuk talks about being able to buy wine keywords for 5 cents, 10 cents, and then now for the same thing you're paying $10 or $15 or $20.
Yeah.
So supply and demand, those costs will go up for advertising, and yes, the platforms are going to respect the individuals who are using the platform, and they want to keep them there and interacting with their family. So the preferences around the content that you're being shown will be for family and friends versus the businesses. And we've already seen that in the last couple of months, the organic reach for Facebook pages has dropped, business pages has dropped considerably.
Huge. If we have any more questions on the live, you're on the live now, you want to ask a question for Tom or myself, leave a question down below. We're going to finish up in a couple of minutes.
Oh, just got one.
Got one? Got a question?
Maybe again, is it worth sponsoring your posts, or are you better off creating constant content all the time? It's a good question, mate.
That's a really
Very
good question.
Yeah, consistency always wins. So I think you really need to think about it almost like with the jab, right hook. Think about it as far as the different types of content that you could provide or that would provide value to your audience, and then mix it up. So, two posts of this, one post of this, one post of this. So you've got variety, and human beings, we all need a few things. We need certainty, which means if your favourite clothes shop or your favourite cafe just thought sometimes, we're going to open at 11 a.m. today, and we might close at 2, but then tomorrow we're going to close at 3, and we're not going to open till lunchtime. You're probably going to stop going there after a while because there's no consistency, and we need that certainty as human beings, which is why the consistency of open hours is a thing. And we also need uncertainty, which means we need variety. So the opposite of that. And so it's yin and yang, and I think you need to be able to incorporate both. But the thing is, if you boost a post, you want to try and optimize things to get as much conversation started around something. So being thoughtful as to what you're posting, but how you can incorporate it into a question where you can use that to get feedback or a response from your audience, because that's going to obviously show up in more people's news feeds because they'll see such and such has commented on this, or Facebook's going to give it preference. But if that doesn't happen and you boost your post, it is an effective way to do it, although Facebook and their algorithm will start to determine the fact that yes, you're someone who regularly boosts posts, and
they'll just make you spend more to get more reach.
It's a money thing, and the second your boosted post stops, your reach is gone. And so what you could do is you can actually boost the post through the ad platform as an ad versus boosting the post, and that means when the ad stops running, the ad stops running, but the post can still organically have more reach, whereas you'll find more with the boosted posts that reach will stop once the boosted post stops.
Yep, that's cool. Got any more questions, Braden?
Let's check. Nothing just yet. Give it a couple of minutes. Just remember we are on delay as well.
A bit of delay. Just have a question. Back to like for a business starting out on social media, you're talking about obviously they've got to have quality content consistently. What's some apps, for example, for someone like if I was running a cafe, obviously I'd take photos of coffee and some food and stuff, but what's some other posts that I could do to really get?
So if you're using an iPhone or something along those lines, the Apple camera app, although it's pretty good, but you can go the next level. So if you aren't in a position where you can afford, a DSLR or a digital camera, and you just want to use your phone for most of the time, people often underestimate the power of an iPhone. And some of the new, particularly the newer models of iPhone, anything 6 plus, 7, 8, 9, and 7, 8 or the 10,
10x or whatever they're calling these days.
having enormous camera capabilities where you can record video in 4K and
you can even do slow mo. I think it's up to 200 frames per second. Is it, Brandon? 200 frames per second on an iPhone.
240.
240
Wow.
frames per second on an iPhone. So slow mo is really slow. That's slower than our cameras that we have.
It's too slow.
It's too slow.
I've got a 6 plus and I think it's 120 frames for slow motion, but it's incredible. But as an app suggestion, there's a Camera Plus, or there's a few enhanced camera apps on the App Store that will give you the ability to change your ISO, change your exposure, change your focus, and do things that are a bit more manual and a bit more technical, and it means you're going to get a far better photo, so the quality of your content again is going to be better. And then there's things like Canva, where you can use pre-templated designs, and you can drag and drop your photos in.
Yep.
So a lot of small business owners find that very easy to use. The biggest thing I think is just to be real with it. Don't try to overcomplicate things, and I think the more you can just keep it simple, and don't try to make things perfect, because if you do that, you're going to procrastinate. You're not really going to be able to roll stuff out as quickly, so your consistency goes down and all the rest. Whereas Gary Vaynerchuk puts it probably perfectly, and I don't think you could put it any better than this: is document, don't create. So
100%, yeah.
Don't try and fabricate, don't try and be fake, it doesn't need to be all Hollywood, it just needs to be real.
Yeah.
And people will find when again, it comes down to energy, and people can sense that. So when your energy's right and you can just create a quick little Instagram story or a short sharp video or do a post when you're feeling passionate about something and your energy's in that place, that's the best time to just get it out and document, don't create. And there's an abundance of apps. You could go all day. We could do a Facebook Live just on
the apps that you can use to make content.
If you
and a lot
think
of them
about
are free
something,
too.
A lot free.
Like I know Canva, we use Canva for our business. We pay for it, but you can get a free version of it, and just you can make as many posts as you want. Sort of, if you're starting out in business, you can. There's Over as well.
Yep.
And
so Over's another design app. And then there's things like the scheduling platform, so you can use things like Hootsuite or Sprout Social or HubSpot, much more advanced, much more expensive version, and sort of integrates a lot more like your SEO and so forth. And you can actually schedule your posts. But although I personally, as a business, as you can see, managing other people's, I'll use Sprout Social, and for the most part, that is because of the reporting features and the reports I can generate. It's not scheduling for even with all the brands and all the posts that I'm managing on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, which can be a lot. I'll always, where possible, use the platform, the native platform, to post those posts, because you find that engagement will drop by about 30% when you use a platform such as a Hootsuite or a Sprout Social or any of the third-party apps where you can actually schedule your content. And if you do need to schedule it, you can do that within Facebook. You can't schedule on Instagram as yet, but Facebook, you can schedule your posts within the platform. Takes a little while longer, but I think it's worthwhile.
Cool. I think we had a question from Megan here. So as a digital marketer, you do marketing for your clients, but how do you set aside to do your own sort of content? Because obviously you need to bring on more clients for your own business, you want to grow your business more, how do you set aside time to do your own content? Obviously you need to do that.
Well, you have to, and I think it comes down to being able to walk the walk if you want to talk the talk. And there's a lot of people you see in the social media industry who do next to nothing with their own personal accounts, and then they sort of say the whole old narrative of it's like the plumber with the broken toilet and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
It's bullshit, and I think people see straight through it. So if you can't demonstrate that you're actually using a platform that you're trying to convince other people to use, then why would they believe you? So if you, I think anyone in this field really needs to make themselves a priority, and you're as much of a priority as your clients, because A, you can use your own content as a case study, so you can show your clients something that maybe they might want to do. And in a lot of cases, for bringing on new clients, this is the power of, and particularly video. I had one a more recent client, and a great business. I really enjoyed working with them, but they came out of the blue. They weren't on my radar at all. And one day I get a phone call from the director of this business, and he said, I've been watching your videos over the last couple of months, and this was exactly what he said was, I can see, you what it basically, I think it was pretty much that, you walk the talk. He's basically saying, you've said that you do blah blah blah, and I followed through, and I've seen that you've done it. He never ever left so much as a like, a comment, or I'd never seen any trace.
Just a ghost, in the background just watching.
And actually, I've got a good name for them, which another client of mine came up with once. He goes, I'm a ninja. So I call them social media ninjas. But this guy is, again, he was a social media ninja, and it just shows. And I said this to a young guy who caught up with just as a LinkedIn connection request, and he'd asked me a couple of questions, and ended up having a coffee with him. But one of the things that I said that I've learned in the last few years is, and something I always try to remember, is that there's always two people, and I just think these are fictional personas, basically, you might call them. One is waiting for you to trip up. They're waiting for you to do the wrong thing, and the other is waiting for you to succeed. And I think if you broadly summarise it as that, there's probably going to be multiple people in either camp, but there's always people out there who are going to be waiting for you to trip up, to do the wrong thing, to wait when when no one else is looking, and to take the shortcut. And so I think it's not the reason you don't do the bad thing, but it's a bloody good incentive probably not to, because I truly believe that there's always someone in everyone's case that's waiting for them to trip up. And then the more positive side of that is that there's always people out there, and again, they're often ghosts, they're often people you don't realise and you don't know, and who aren't going to give you praise, or aren't going to give you whatever pat on the back that you might be seeking from them, but you might not even know that they exist, but they do, and they're wanting you to succeed. So I just think it's a nice thing to think about. So that was something I communicated to this guy's, maybe just, I don't know, a little bit of wisdom perhaps that I developed over the last couple of years.
No, 100% agree with that. It's cool. Don't think we have any more questions on the Q&A down below. Might finish the live there tonight, guys. Look, thank you very much everyone that joined. Always whoever's joining on after the live, that'd be awesome if you join on that and stay on long for 40 minutes with us. This is Tom Bailey from Bridge Inbound Marketing. We talked everything social media, business and mindset tonight. This is the first of many shows to come. If you like this Q&A sort of style interview, leave a comment down below. Give us some advice of what you'd want to hear on the next show, or who you would like to see us interview. Tonight's been a really good night, just having a chat to Tom about social media and business, because we're both in the same sort of area. Us predominantly doing video content, and him obviously running social media pages and building businesses through the social channels. So we'll end the live there, guys, and thank you very much, Tom, for jumping on board.
And if anyone's got any questions, just comment them afterwards, and I'll respond to every single one. So
yeah, we'll tag Tom in the comments as well. So make sure you send Tom a message if you've got any social media questions as well. He's happy to help you.
Happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.